And they won't say that it's because of that it helps black or brown people overwhelmingly, like the student loan forgiveness program or whatever. They're just going to say, we paid for our kids to go to school, so why should these people get, on my tax dollar, get to go to school, or not have to pay? They signed their loans, so that's not fair to me, who paid it made sacrifices and paid for me to go to school, for my kid to go to school or whatever. So, but no, underneath that is, that's going to overwhelmingly help black and brown people and screw them. That's what they're really saying. That other thing is BS and gaslighting, because the legacy of Jim Crow, the legacy of redlining, the legacy of legacy students benefit a certain group. And that is the reason why that certain group is more likely to be able to pay for their kids to go to school, and the other group to not. So get the hell out of here with that. It says liberation, freedom from oppression. It says the tearing down of the progress made during the civil rights era is the goal. Yes, this is what I'm trying to say. And that's the reason why I wanted to cover this. Liberation, freedom from oppression, the lack of black representation. So it's like, we just hire the people that are, the most qualified. It's not that it's just we only want to hire white men or admit white men only for these positions. It just so happens to turn out that white men tend to be the ones that's the most qualified for these positions. It's just the way it is. It's not that we are being racist or whatever. It's not that we're trying to keep from having black representation in our company or our organization or our university. It's just that the white men tend to be the ones that's qualified. Whoever's the most qualified is who gets in here, and it just so happen to be white men. It's kind of like every invention that has been worth anything to humanity was done by white men. Just, it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense. That's one of the things that burns my bridges. Again, I'm gonna say that. Maybe that's my new little phrase, burns my bridges. You know what really burns my bridges? Freaking, the idea that people just accept this, it just makes sense. It's like, all of the greatest philosophers in history were white men. Oh, that just makes sense. It just makes sense. All the greatest countries or the most organized countries, civilized countries in the world are majority white people, and that just makes sense. So then what is the underlining of that? It's kind of like when they say demographics all the time, when we compare the United States to like Finland or Sweden or somewhere else, and they're like, they eradicated their prisons over there. They don't have no need for prisons over there. And it's like, we can't implement that in the United States because of demographics. So then what are you really saying about that then? It's mostly white people in Sweden and Finland. So that's the reason why they don't have as much crime. You got other demographics here in the United States, and that's the reason why we have much crime. So then you're saying that black and brown people are predetermined to be criminals, is what you're saying. You're saying that black and brown people aren't likely to create inventions that are good for humanity. You're saying black and brown people can't come up with philosophies that are good and useful to humanity. This is what you're saying, okay? Now, you may not realize it because your brain isn't working past the surface level of these things, and that's what really burns my bridges, is that, it just, to you in your mind, it just makes sense. It just makes sense that the most qualified person is a white man. It just makes sense that it's white people who come up with the philosophies and all of the inventions in the world. It just makes sense that predominantly white countries are the ones that or more organized or whatever. It's like it just makes sense. So if that just makes sense in your mind, then you have something that has been put into your mind that has led you to believe that certain groups are smarter or better or more organized, more civilized than others based on the freaking color of their skin. And you would say, no, that's not true. And you're trying to say that I'm racist. Yes. If you're not racist, then you're prejudiced. If you come to these conclusions without even spending a second to think about it, that something doesn't seem weird. It doesn't seem weird to you that, all the sources, all the academic sources go back to a white man. That's not strange to you at all. It just makes sense to you, doesn't it? It says become active. Voting, community activism, sharing info, education, sharing good info too, vetting this stuff, I don't share everything that goes down my timeline. Like I hesitate all the time. And I implore people to take a moment to hesitate. Don't immediately share it. And then if it's like overwhelmingly negative, even if it's true or whatever, then you think about what are you spreading? What is going to be the impact of what you're sharing? If it's overwhelmingly negative, try to not share it. Negative news spreads crazy. A black guy getting killed by the police gets shared like crazy. Like the black people are traumatized by seeing other black people getting killed, on TV and in videos and in slides over and over and again. We get to hear the agonizing screams of the last moments of these people's lives. And that shit is not right. That isn't right. Don't share that shit. And there's a lot of stuff out there that you shouldn't share. So if it's not positive, please try not to share it. So share good information. Do some vetting if it's just like emotional and it's gotcha and it's clickbait. I mean, I know everybody wants likes and shares and comments, mentions, but that doesn't make you any money. I guess it does in some circumstances. But the way I feel about things is that money isn't everything, man. Like we've been trained, and that's the reason why this capitalist system is the one that's dominant and continues to freaking destroy the world. And it controls the education system. It's entered its tentacles in every aspect of human life. And it leads us to think like a successful person is a person that makes the most money. The more money you make, the more successful you are. So success is equated by how much money you make. And like, we know if we sit down and actually think about it, that that's not true, but that is what is sold. And it's like, and that's what people share or talk about, I have the latest car. I have this square footage in my home. My home costs this much. My salary is this amount. My title at work is this, and so forth and so on. And this is what we value in our society, Really sad. So, how I feel about voting if you watch this show, but I still say, especially local elections, pay attention to local elections, be involved, and go ahead out there and vote. Go ahead and do it. I mean, it's only a small part of what needs to be done, but go ahead and do that. So community activism is way more important, I'd say, than voting, way more powerful than voting. Education, actually learn some stuff for yourself. Look stuff up, look that mess up, become more educated about things, and it's going to help you and everyone around you out. Don't be passive. The powers that be relies on us being passive. Things will never change as long as we just go along to get along and no one ever fights back. We got to fight back. At some point, you got to say, no, this ain't right, and do something about it. And the last thing here is don't give up. So You know, it's a lot of hopelessness, you know, and I feel it all the time. I feel it all the time. That's part of the reason why I haven't done the show. So I'm like, what impact am I really having? Nobody's even watching this shit. So, but you know, don't give up. You know, keep on pushing. You never know. Like one person, you impact one person, that person impacts someone else, and that person impacts someone else. And, you know, so a difference is made just by your existence. Your existence is the resistance, you know. And if you live by your values, you stand on your morals, you live in a way that you follows the principles that you believe in, you're having an impact without you even knowing it. You know, don't even really have to do anything. Imagine the world is a different place without you in it. It's a different place, not the same place without you. Cyber.